The Garden of Eden was unlike any place you could imagine. It had tall trees with sweet fruits, colorful flowers that never wilted, and crystal clear streams that sang as they flowed. Every creature lived in harmony, and everything was perfect. In this perfect garden there lived the first humans, Adam and Eve. They were kind and curious, and they loved exploring their beautiful home. They spoke with the animals and took care of the plants. But most of all, they loved talking with God, who visited them often and walked with them in the cool of the day. In the middle of the garden stood two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God told Adam and Eve they could eat from any tree in the garden, except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He warned them that if they ate from this tree, they would surely die. Adam and Eve listened to God's words and promised to obey. But the garden had a hidden secret. One day, while Adam and Eve were picking berries, they noticed a being in the branches of the forbidden tree. This being was not an ordinary snake. It was Nachash, a creature with an aura of mystery and intelligence. Nachash had the body of a serpent but the mind and speech of a cunning being. "Hello, Eve," Nachash hissed softly. "Why don't you come closer? I have something wonderful to show you." Eve, curious and innocent, approached Nachash. Adam followed, wanting to protect her. "Why don't you eat from this tree?" Nachash asked, its voice smooth and enticing. "God told us not to," Eve replied. "He said we would die if we did." Nachash smiled, its eyes gleaming with knowledge. "You will not surely die," it said. "God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like Him, knowing good and evil." If you're loving our exploration of the realms of gods and ancient mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join our community of curious minds and never miss an epic tale or fascinating discovery. Click the bell to stay updated on our latest videos, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Leave a comment below with what you'd like to see next. Your thoughts and ideas are what make this adventure truly special. Eve hesitated, looking at the shiny fruit. It seemed so tempting, so full of promise. Adam, too, felt a strange desire to understand the unknown. Finally, Eve reached out and picked the fruit. She took a bite, and it was delicious, unlike anything she had ever tasted. She handed it to Adam, who also took a bite. As they ate, they felt a rush of knowledge and awareness. But it was not what they had expected. They felt fear, shame, and sadness for the first time. Suddenly, they realized they were naked and quickly sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. When they heard God walking in the garden, they hid among the trees, ashamed of what they had done. God called out, "Adam, where are you?" Adam replied, "I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." "Who told you that you were naked?" God asked. "Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam blamed Eve and Eve blamed Nachash. But then something incredible happened. Nachash's form began to shift and change. It grew taller and more radiant, revealing itself as a fallen angel. Nachash had once been a great and beautiful being, filled with wisdom and light, but had turned away from God out of pride and jealousy. Nachash had been envious of humans and wanted to bring them down. It had used its cunning and intelligence to deceive Adam and Eve. Its pride and envy had led it to rebel against God, and now it had caused Adam and Eve to disobey as well. God was saddened by their disobedience, but He still loved them. He told them they would have to leave the garden and face many challenges in the world outside. Life would be harder, but God promised to watch over them and one day send a Savior to help them. Adam and Eve left the garden with heavy hearts, but they held on to God's promise. They faced many hardships, but they also found moments of joy and beauty in the world. They learned to grow food, build shelters, and raise children. And even though they were no longer in Eden, they felt God's presence with them. They remembered his promise and passed it on to their children and grandchildren, telling them about the beautiful garden, the cunning Nachash, and the great love of God. From that day on, humans remembered the story of Nachash in the garden. They understood the importance of making good choices and staying true to God's guidance. And they learned that even when they made mistakes, God's love and forgiveness were always there, guiding them back to the right path. The story of Adam, Eve, and Nachash became a lesson for all people, teaching them about the power of choice, the consequences of disobedience, and the endless love of God. And so, the story of the garden and Nachash was told from generation to generation, reminding everyone of the profound truths hidden in the simplest of tales.